I was just waiting to see how long people know. Good morning. Good morning. So we are on day 2 of our Book of Esther walkthrough. So welcome to class. The first thing you need to do is we are on the back side of this page. So not the side of the pink box, but the back side. So flip it over. We're going to be right there. Couple things this morning. Really sad. I was at the soccer game, or not the soccer game, the football game with my son the other day. He's at, flag football. And I sat next to this person, and they were telling me how pitiful their life was. Sometimes people tell you things like that because you're a pastor. And they told me that their wife had just left them for the tractor salesman. Apparently, she left a John Deere letter. That was pretty good, right?
That was a lot of work.
But it was a lot of work, but it was worth it, right?
Oh yeah, really?
And the reason why I got to tell jokes is because I'm sad usually on Sunday mornings.
Sad.
I'm sad on Sunday mornings because Andrea always makes me go out and crush the cans for recycling.
Right.
Soda pressing. Soda pressing.
Soda pressing.
That's why I'm sad.
Soda pressing.
All right. I got another one, but it's not any better.
Whoa, okay. We'll never get through Esther.
All right.
You're behind.
Well, we are on question number 2, but I think that it would be a good thing for us to jump up and read back through. So, Andrew, you're going to go backwards. And we're going to look at Esther verses 1 through 4, 10 through 12, and 15 through 21. So, she's going to get there. Would somebody be willing to read verses 1 through 4, 10 through 12, 15 through 21? When you get tired, just stop and we'll choose somebody else.
These events happened during the time of Xerxes. When Xerxes was ruling over 127 provinces from India to Kush. King Xerxes was ruling on his royal throne in Susa, the citadel. In the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a banquet for all of his officials and administrators, for the leaders of the army of Persia and Media, and for the nobles and officials of the provinces. He displayed the glory and splendor of the riches of his kingdom and the grandeur of his majesty for many days, 180 days in all.
All right, we're going to stop there. Remember right here, he's throwing this party. It turns out that it's a 6-month party. Remember? Imagine having a party for 6 months. Don't you wish you had that much money? So he's having this massive party. He's doing it for 2 reasons. One, he has been king now for a while, and he's trying to, he's getting ready to avenge his father's death and do something his father was unable to do, which is take over Greece. So he's going after this, right? And so this is a party. He wants to show power. He wants to show prestige. And so this is where we're at, right? It tells us a little bit about him. Would somebody else like to pick up on 10, or should we force 10 to continue?
I'll do it.
Okay, go ahead.
On the 7th day, when the king was feeling good from the wine, he commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, and Abictha, Zethar, and Carcass, 7 of the eunuchs who served him, to bring before him Queen Vashti, wearing the crown of the kingdom, in order to show the people and the officials her beauty. She was very good-looking. Queen Vashti refused to come in response to the king's command delivered by the eunuchs. The king was infuriated, and his anger burned within him. He asked, according to the law, what should be done with Queen Vashti, since she did not obey the command of the king delivered by the eunuchs.
We're going to have you stop there for a second. So, real quick, what we know about Vashti, and we're going to come back to Vashti, we're not going to talk a lot about her, but Vashti, first and foremost, she was from a very rich royal family, all right? So he had kind of married into a good family at this point. And so this is going to create a bit of a conundrum for him, because the rule in Syria at this point was, or Persia at this point was, that if somebody disobeyed the king, they had to die. But what would be the problem if her family is very rich, wealthy, and powerful? You're going to make them mad, right? You don't want to rile up the in-laws. And so he's going to be kind of put in this interesting position because the queen just disobeyed him. All right? All right, anybody want to pick up on verse 16?
In the presence of the king and the officials, Nebuchadnezzar said, Queen Vashti had not only committed an offense against the king, but she had also committed an offense against all the officials and all the people in the province of King Xerxes. Because the action of the king, when it is reported to all women, will cause them to look upon their husbands with contempt. They will say, King Xerxes said to bring Queen Vashti beforehand, but she did not come. Today, the noble ladies of Persia and Media, who have heard about the action of the queen, will be talking about it to their husbands, who are the officials of the king. There will be more than enough contempt and anger. If the king agrees, he should issue a royal decree. It should be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, so that it cannot be changed. Vashti shall not come into the presence of King Xerxes. The king will give her status as queen to a different person, one better than she is. The decree of the king will be heard throughout all of his vast kingdom. Then all the women will give honor to their husbands, both the most important and the least significant. Advice seemed good to the king and the officials, so the king did as Nebuchadnezzar had said.
All right, so we're going to go back to verse 15. Last thing we're going to say about, one more. All right, so here, look at verse 17. Because of the action of the queen, when it is reported to all the women, will cause them to look upon their husbands with contempt. Because of this sentence, Vashti, in the early 1900s and late 1800s, she's called a feminist. Harriet Beecher Stowe, if you know who she is, she actually writes a book on Vashti and calls her the first feminist recorded in history. Right? Because she's going to put down the man here. She stands up for herself. It's kind of an interesting little point there, too. All right, let's go to question number 2 now. We had touched on this, but I think it's a good place for us to start. The question is, describe Xerxes and give a list of his attributes that become obvious for this section. Now, we know that he's having a party, right? And so we know that he likes to party. That's a big thing. The other thing, does anybody remember any of the stories I told you about him? Secular stories?
Mm-hmm.
What were one of them?
Well, when he tried to build a bridge across to Greece, the weather came in and the sea destroyed his bridge. He became so angry that he had his troops go over and actually, like he's going to punish the sea, he had his troops go out there with chains and beat the water.
Yeah, they whipped the water with chains, right? He also executed all of the architects of the bridge. And so that tells us something a little bit there, right? Then I'll show you the story, remember the son story where he has the son cut in half because the father dares to ask that one of his 2 sons be allowed to remain home. And so he cuts the guy. So we know he's quick-tempered. But that's not what God wants. James 1:19. Anybody want to read that one?
My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry.
So I guess my question here is this. Is Xerxes a servant of God then?
Not by what James is said, or what is said in James.
Okay. So what about these guys? Herod the Great. Did God use him?
Yes,
Okay. What about Herod Antipas?
yes.
What did he? Let's go back. What did Herod the Great do that everybody remembers him for?
Killed the babies.
He killed the babies. the innocents, right? He's trying to kill Jesus. He sends out his troops and he says, the wise men won't tell me where he is. They've abandoned me. So just kill every child under 2 years old in Bethlehem. Right? That's what he does. What about Herod Antipas? This is his relation.
John the Baptist had this.
Right, if you remember right, the story is that Herod had a wife that was actually his brother's wife, remember? And they talk about some weird family relation. So he marries his brother's wife. She has a child already, Salome. And Salome does a sexy little dance in front of all of his friends. And Herod is so taken back by this dance that he says, I'll give you anything you want. And what does she ask for? The head of John the Baptist. And so he takes off the head of John the Baptist. What about King Saul? This is Old Testament now. What does he do that we remember him for?
Tries to kill David.
He goes after David. Yeah, he tries to kill the new king because he's trying to hang on to power himself. So there's 3 biblical examples of kings that were they servants of the Lord. What do you guys think?
No.
But sometimes how does the Lord use them still?
Punish to, like, the Lord used the nations around Israel several times to punish Israel for their, when they forsook him,
Okay.
forsaken.
So God can use these people still for good, right? Look very quickly. Herod the Great. He kills the children, and he's in power, but the connection that he has with the Roman family make a difference. And we actually call this the time for which Jesus came, right? He comes at the right time. What about Herod the Antipas? He murders John the Baptist. How did that turn out for good?
More to Christ.
There you go. Remember, all of John's disciples have this tendency that what do? They become disciples of John. And so John keeps on sending back to Jesus, but there's still this, I'm going to latch on to John, right? And so John even says, I must become less so that he can become greater. And when he dies, what did John's disciples do? They go to Jesus. And then King Saul, if you remember, essentially, I love this. My dad used to say, I never went to college, but I went to the school of hard knocks. Did his mom or dad ever tell you that? Right? You might have a fancy college degree, but I went to the school of hard knocks. David went to the school of hard knocks. Because under Saul, he learned how to be a king, didn't he? Under Saul, he learned what it was like to be in battle. Under Saul, God forged him in the fire that was Saul. Right? Made him a good king by training him under a terrible king. And so God used these people. So how is God going to use Xerxes is the thing that we need to figure out in the coming times. All right, so let's take a look at the next one. This is the respond. Question number 3. The real reason in this chapter is not found in the behavior of Xerxes or Vashti, but in the power of God, who is invisibly directing human affairs for the ultimate good of his people. How can we respond to that? Take a second, look at it. The real lesson in this chapter is not found in the behavior of Xerxes, his partying and his anger, or of Vashti, her I'm not going to listen to the king, but in the power of God, who is invisibly directing the human affairs for the ultimate good of his people. What do you think?
So there is this, I guess, little story or meme or whatever you want to call it, that I've seen a lot of times about how when someone is cross-stitching or embroidering, you see the bottom and it looks like this big huge mess, but then you see the top and it's this beautiful work of art. And that's kind of, we down here just see a big mess. We see people that are disobedient and doing things wrong, but those, I guess you could say, black threads are what's outlining God's goodness inside of it and how he brings about what needs to happen.
I like that picture of the other side of the cross stitch, right?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. But if you look at one the wrong side, you get this is a mess. Flip it
Yeah.
over and you see the whole picture. Yeah, and so that's right. So if we look, why did Vashti have to refuse to go see the king?
So that Esther could be queen.
So that Esther could be queen. And so God was working through even those moments that everything was all going to work together, right? Let's go to the next section here. Now this is kind of from the musical, and we're going to see.
No,
Pardon me, my queen.
it's undignified. I will not be part of that indulgent spectacle. If he thinks he can prove his nobility by commanding me to appear, my husband is mistaken.
But he is the king.
He is the son of a stable boy. I am a true queen.
The empire was prepared for victory. King Xerxes was prepared to seal his legacy, but no one was prepared for what happened next.
My subjects, I give you my queen, Vashti! Where is she? Where is my wife? She says she's not coming.
Your Majesty, all people throughout your land must follow your commands, even the Queen.
How could she? This could spread like a disease. Women doing as they please. Think of the trouble they could bring. She will pay for this. She's wrong, not only you, but the entire nation too.
I'm afraid we must do something.
Vashti's fate hung in the balance. Persian law was clear. Whatever the king decreed could never be changed.
Scribes! Summon the scribes! Princes of Persia, speak! What is your counsel?
Issue this decree. All Persian wives,
How women of Persia are to give honor to their husbands!
they must comply.
Because she disobeyed, the crown will be taken from Vashti!
Let it be done once and for all. Everybody knows that right comes before the
Take him to the gallows!
Hail Xerxes, King of Kings and
This is where our story begins.
All right, so if you take a look now, let's take a look at our Bible lesson. Let's go to Esther chapter 2, selected verses 1 through 4, 7 through 14, 17, 18. Would somebody be willing to read verses 1 through 4?
When King Xerxes was no longer so angry, he remembered what Vashti had done and what had been decreed about her. The young men who served as attendants to the king said, "Search for good-looking young virgins for the king. Let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of the kingdom to do this. Gather all the good-looking young virgins into the citadel at Susa, to the harem under the supervision of Haggai, the king's eunuch, the overseer of the women. Give them beauty treatments. The young woman who pleases the king should be queen instead of Vashti." The king agreed and implemented the plan.
Would somebody be willing to read 7 through 14?
Mordecai had raised his cousin Hadashi, also called Esther, because she had no father or mother. She was shapely and good-looking. When her father and mother died, Mordecai adopted her as his daughter. When the king's order and edict had been proclaimed, and many young women had been gathered into the citadel of Susa, under the supervision of Haggai, Esther was taken to the king's palace to Haggai, who was in charge of the harem. She pleased Haggai and it gained his favor. He quickly provided her with beauty treatments and food. He assigned a good position in the harem to her and the 7 female attendants picked out for the to the 7 female attendants picked out for her from the king's palace. Esther had not revealed her nationality or her family background because Mordecai had told her not to do so. Every day Mordecai walked back and forth in front of the harem to learn about Esther's well-being and about what was going to be done with her. Every young woman received a turn to go to King Xerxes after she had received the prescribed 12 months of beauty treatments. For 6 months, they used oil and myrrh. For 6 months, perfumes and other beauty treatments for women. Then the young women went to the king. Everything she desired was given to her when she went from the harem to the king's palace. She went to the king in the evening. In the morning, she returned to the second harem under the supervision of Shazaka, the king's eunuch who was in charge of the concubines. She did not return to the king unless he was delighted with her and she was summoned by name. The king loved Esther more than he loved all the other women. She won his favor and approved more than all of the other virgins did. He placed the crown of the kingdom on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. The king gave a great banquet in honor of Esther for all his officials and administrators. He declared a tax holiday for the province and gave gifts as only the king could give.
So what does this remind you of from other Bible stories that you know? You see some reminiscence of Daniel here. What happened to Daniel? He was pulled away from his home, and he was told to serve a foreign king. Right? Do you see that that's similar? But there's some contrasts, and we're going to come back to those contrasts. One thing I want to point out before we go on is go back, Andrea. Keep going. One more. Okay, here we go. He assigned a good position in the harem to her and to the 7 female attendants picked out for her from amongst the king's palace. What does that tell us? What did you say?
She was favored.
She was favored. What is a harem? Well, you would think from some of the movies we watch, right? No, that means they use another word, concubine. He knew her biblically. Do you see what I mean? Vashti was part of his harem. He had girlfriends that he would frequent, and that's why it says that she was brought to him. And if they didn't please him, he would send them away and they would never visit them. If they pleased him, they would remain part of his harem. So she's one of many women. So keep that in mind as we make this connection between Daniel, because hopefully your mind should immediately be going. There are big differences between Daniel and Esther, aren't there already? All right. Oh, and also all the beauty products, right? She does the beauty products. She does the treatments. She plays the game. Do you see? All right. So let's go to our next piece. This is the paragraph right underneath the Bible verse. It says, 4 years have passed since the public shaming of Vashti. However, history records that Vashti was not so quickly done away with. In fact, Xerxes took his wife to Greece with him in 482 BC, where Vashti, out of a jealous rage, mutilated Xerxes' brother's wife. This likely allowed him more easily to dispose of her. Give you a little background here. The problem with Vashti, like I said, is she's from a powerful, rich family, right? In fact, Xerxes had kind of claimed her royalty as what would throw him into the throne. So he couldn't just kill her. So she had to do something. So he takes her with her to Greece. We know this all from secular records. When he gets to Greece, he comes onto his own brother's wife and has an affair with her, but not first. First, he comes onto his niece. So he tries to have an affair with the niece, and the niece says no. So what does he do? He goes to mom instead, the niece's mother. And he ends up having a long affair while he's in Greece with his brother's wife. And Vashti finds out. And for some reason, because she is also royalty, she gets very angry, unlike with the concubines. And we're told that she attacks the brother's wife and mutilates her face. Why the face? Anybody got any idea?
So she's not beautiful anymore.
She's not beautiful anymore. So Xerxes now has to deal with his own wife physically mutilating another piece of royalty here. And that seems to, according to secular records, give him the ability to now dispose of her. Because now he's got legal reason that she has done something herself. And it can be sold, this is the important part, it can be sold to the public better. Right? Now he's got political wind at his back. All right, so 4 years later, let's go to question number 4. God often uses what appears to be horrible circumstances for his good purposes. What other times in history or in your life has this happened? Let's go biblical history. Can anybody think of a Bible verse that might say that God can sometimes use horrible circumstances?
Well, with Joseph, when God gave the king the dream of the years of plenty and then the years of famine, that famine brought Joseph's family back together.
Right. And even on Joseph more, right? Look at this. This is a quote from the book of Romans, but it's quoting Genesis, what you just said. Anybody want to read that one?
We know that all things work together for the good of those who love God, for those who are called according to his purpose.
There. All things work together for good, right? For those who love God. So now you should immediately be thinking about Joseph. Think about the story of Joseph. What happened to Joseph? He's with his brothers at the very beginning of the story. What happens to him?
Sold into slavery.
He's sold into slavery. Does anybody think this is something good? Like, would you go home with your own children and say, hey, I want to teach you a Bible story, and I think you should follow this model? Right? No, we would say that's horrible. But God used it for the good, because look what happened. This going to what you said, Jolie. Because of Joseph brings all of his brothers to Egypt. And what happened in Egypt? Moses gets them out, right? Moses takes them to, what did God promise Abraham? The promised land. Right? So God used some terrible brothers to get those people in the right place at the right time, so Moses could take them. So when you're going through stuff in your life, think about that. Did God allow this to come into my life because he needs me at the right place at the right time? Right? Sometimes that's important for us to remember. Here's another one that I thought of. Look at this. Here's Ruth. The neighboring women named him, that's Ruth's baby, saying, a son is born to Naomi. And they named him Obed. He became the father of Jesse, the father of David. And who comes out of the line of David? Jesus. Right? Now, if you know the story of Ruth, Ruth's husband dies, Naomi's husband dies, Naomi's now lost all her boys, and they're forced to leave Moab, and where do they go? No, they were there, they went back to Bethlehem. And why is that important? What is Caesar Augustus' decree?
Everyone should return to where they came from.
And Malachi says it'll come from Bethlehem. So Jesus, or the Lord, uses the death of Ruth's husband to get her back to Bethlehem so she can be in the right place at the right time for the Savior to be born. Again, put that in your own life. When things are going bad in your life, why does God allow this stuff to happen? He's not punishing you, is he?
He's got a plan.
He's got a plan. You just don't see anything but the underside of the stitching, like Jolie said. Right? So remember, God's got a plan for all of these things. All right, let's go to the next one. Question number 5. we're told that Esther did not disclose her nationality. Why might she have done this? And this is the Bible verse. Esther had not revealed her nationality or her family background because Mordecai had told her not to do so. Why?
To protect her.
He's going to kill her, to protect her, right? And this is something that she is obviously worried about. They're afraid that this will get her in more trouble, right? So maybe there might be some prejudice going on there. Anybody else got any other thoughts?
Well, you said that, what is it, Haman?
Mm-hmm.
He serves the king and he hated all the Jews. If he served the king and he knew that she was a Jew, he likely would have.
And we're going to find that in just a second, aren't we? We're going to find that she's... But this is interesting. Look at this. This is very different than Daniel. We're talking about similarities between Daniel. Unlike Daniel and his friends, Esther may have hidden her faith. God is certainly not limited to using models of personal piety to accomplish his purposes. It is possible that the lack of piety in this book is an accurate reflection of the lifestyle of Esther, who had been conformed to the Persian way of life. So she had kind of adopted the Persian life, and God is still going to use her for his good purpose. All right, let's go to the next one. Compare and contrast. This is where I was getting at. How can we compare and contrast Esther's reaction to Xerxes? Remember what her reaction was? What does she do? She obeys. She does the beauty treatments. She jumps in there. She goes into the harem. She does all the things that are required by law. What is Daniel's reaction? To resist. Look here. I'll read this part. Daniel made up his mind that he would not defile himself with the special food of the king or with the wine that he drank. So he sought permission from the chief official so that he would not have to defile himself. God made the chief of the officials favorable and sympathetic toward Daniel. Then the chief of the officials said to Daniel, I am afraid of my lord, my king, who assigned your food and drink. Why should he see your faces looking less healthy than those of the other young men who are your age? You put my life at risk before the king. Daniel said to the superintendent, whom the chief of officials had placed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days. Tell them to give us only vegetables, and we will eat them and drink water. Observe our appearance and the appearance of the young men who eat the special royal food. Then deal with your servants based on what you see. So we listened to what they said about this and tested them for 10 days. At the end of 10 days, their appearance was noticeably better than that of the others. And they were healthier than any of the other young men who had been eating the special royal food. So Daniel is told to eat the pork, eat the food that's been sacrificed to gods, and his reaction is, Jews don't do that. But Esther's reaction is, I'm going to go with the flow. The king tells me to come to his bed, I'm going to go to his bed. The king tells me to put the special makeup on, I'm going to go with the flow and do what he says. So you see how they're very different in the way that they respond? Why might that be shocking?
God uses both of them.
What's that?
I said God used both of them.
God still uses both of them, right? And so I thought this was kind of interesting. This is the Bible is unique because all the heroes of the Bible are so flawed. The Bible doesn't hide their flaws. And so sometimes you look at the heroes of the Bible, and when you hear things like, be perfect, therefore your heavenly Father is perfect, and you think, well, I can't be like that. Think about people like Esther when you make your mistakes. Right? Shouldn't embolden you to make those sins, but what should it do? It should give you a little bit of comfort. Because God uses people like this. And he says, I'm still going to use them in my plan. And so it should, for us, make us realize that these people in the Bible, they're real people. Right? They're not fictional, perfect characters. All right, let's go to the next one. I think this is going to have to be where we finish up. Identify possible motives in regards to the beauty pageant following the characters Xerxes, Mordecai, and Esther. So why is he having this beauty pageant?
Pick out a queen.
He wants to pick out a queen based on what? On looks, right? But he's gonna get something he didn't bargain for, isn't he? He's gonna get this woman who we know had been raised in the faith by Mordecai. And so it's gonna shine through for her. When I think about this, you know what I often think about? When someone is confirmed in the faith, and they are trained in the ways of the Lord, right? And they get confirmed, and sometimes we see them do what after they're confirmed?
Right.
They stray. They become a liver of life, right? And they're no longer part of this culture, they're now part of the world's culture. And we think, oh, well, we've lost them forever. What are we about to learn from Esther? She was raised by Mordecai in the faith. And now we know, what did she do? She goes, these part of their society, now she's going to come back. So what can that give us encouragement for with our own youth? Yeah. They can still come back, right? They're never too far gone. All right. With that, let's fold our hands and let's have a prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, today we see that you use imperfect people for your good plans, whether it's Xerxes or Esther or me. Use us to be part of your plan. Use us to show other people Jesus. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you. And next week we'll jump into Esther chapter 3 and 4, and I think 5.
We get a new piece of paper next week. Oh, Bob. That's always exciting.
Yeah.